which I think is aptly entitled, and he hit the famous wall. I think this time in our journey, every year in men's fraternity, you know, we're kind of getting through the material. We're covered a lot. It's dark, dark, dark out there when we get up in the morning. It's cold. You're out there with the frost trying to scrape it off your windshield with your driver's license or a credit card just to get here in the morning, and it just feels like the wall. I love that part where the brick comes out and he looks in, and is the better side of him, the voice inside that's the noble part of him is saying, come on, you can do it. And I know you guys know what that's like because you're here this morning. And in every one of us this morning a little bit, I know for me, I hit that snooze a couple of extra times this morning, and I just had to get up, just had to do it and get the wall. The journey that Tim's got us on right now, this kind of journey within our men's fraternity, great adventure journey, is the real end of that is to have a personal mission statement. And I hit some real walls around that for myself. The first time that, and I can't even remember what the process, I think I read a book that said, hey, you ought to have a mission statement, a personal mission statement, something like that. I thought, man, that's a great idea. I just saw the wisdom in it, and I had no success in getting it done, and I really just kind of ate on me a little bit because I'd quit. And then a few years later, I read Stephen Covey's book, The 7 Habits for Highly Effective People, and that was kind of the second place. And boy, I really got motivated then because that book really changed my life. And I just couldn't get it done. I quit again. I just didn't know how to start as much as anything. And the third time was the very first time I went through the great adventure, and I got there. I got my personal mission statement, and that has been such a blessing and such an empowerment to my life to have that, to know clearly why I'm saying yes to some things and why I'm saying no to some things, because that's what I ought to be saying yes to and what I ought to be saying no to. And I did it in this process because I had other men that were struggling with the same thing. It's a real inexact science, and it's kind of ugly. I mean, it's not a aha moment. At least it wasn't for me. It was just a lot of kind of thinking and grinding and working. But this process that Tim's going to take us through will get us there just one step at a time. But at the end of that, you're going to have a personal mission statement that's going to excite your life. So Tim, come up and take us the next step of that journey. Would you guys welcome Tim Lundy?
Well, good morning. So as Russell said, we are going to continue that journey together of discovering our unique design. What is it that makes you uniquely you? I think over the next couple of weeks, especially as we get into the tool, maybe some of you have gone online, you've already taken the assessment, you've seen some of it. Really some great discoveries. Just to review what we said last week, you're going to gain a better understanding of your unique design and what makes you come alive. And I would encourage you, go in the workbook, page 44 gives you the website. If you've not taken the profile, you need to do it between now and next week. And it takes a couple of hours. It's going to take some time. You don't have to do it in one sitting. You can do it over a couple hours, but go ahead, do that. Make sure you give yourself the time to do it thoroughly. You don't want to rush through it. All you're robbing is you in that case. It's not a case, we're not going to have you turn them in or anything else, but you'll have the best assessment of yourself if you'll take the time and do the profile. I'd also encourage you as you do that, and we said it last week, if you can't afford it, let us know. We had a number of guys who signed up out at the booth, and they said, hey, if you could send me the code, I can't swing it right now. That's okay. That's great. We've had different guys come forward, and they go, yeah, I want to sponsor somebody else. And so it's been great to see how men's fraternity in this room, other guys looking out for other guys. And so I'd encourage you, if that's the holdup for you, make sure you go by there and we'll send you an email. You can get a code and go ahead and do that this week. As you do that, and maybe if you've got your profile already, you're looking at it, some of the language is different. It's some different terminology. It's different really than a lot of profiles. And some of the terms, pretty self-explanatory. I'll really walk through that. Over the next several weeks, we're going to explain it to you and talk about some of the motivations, things behind it. With the new terminology, Russell sent me a thing this week of new words and phrases that have been entered into our vernacular. Every year they add new words to the language. And some of the ones that stood out to me, humorous with that, the word unfriend is now part of our vernacular. And it's based on Facebook. I'm not personally on Facebook. My wife's on Facebook. Her greatest dilemma is if she has someone who wants to be her friend and she doesn't want to be their friend. She's worried some code will be sent to them, Lee Lundy does not want to be your friend. But apparently you can go on and click and unfriend somebody. I just never thought that was a possibility. Friend and unfriend. Other word, here's one of my favorite, no motion. Some people last year got a no motion. This is a promotion without a raise or a bonus. A few of you experienced those at work. You got one of those promotions. It's really a no motion. Mascary. When a person wears a scary amount of mascara, they're mascary. Running latte. This is showing up late to work because you stopped for coffee along the way. Running latte. Hiking the Appalachian Trail. This is a new term, hiking the Appalachian Trail. This is to step out on one's wife in the fashion of the adulterous South Carolina governor. You just say, well, I was out hiking the Appalachian Trail. The tooth sweater. This is when you go for a day or so without brushing your teeth. And your teeth is that texture you feel in your mouth. That's a little tooth sweater that you're wearing there. Yeah, some of you, unfortunately, you're laughing a little too much like this is a frequent occurrence for you. So don't know what that means. And then reader's block. I like this one. Even as Russell said this morning, he read the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I had reader's block on this book for a long time. This is related to writer's block. This is when you cannot for the life of you pick up a book and read it. And you ever had one of those books everybody's reading? I remember when 7 Habits first came out, everybody was reading. And I felt doubly guilty because you look at the title, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and I can't even get through the book. It took me a few tries to finally realize, the guy was on to something there. There's all these new terms that are coming out like that. You're going to have a lot coming at you with the profile. Here's what I'd encourage you. Just don't freak out on any of the terms. If you don't understand something, we'll explain it. Don't assume on any of the terms either, though. You may look at it and go, oh, okay, I know what that means. You might not to the detail we're talking about. This is a highly, finely tuned profile that's used from everybody from NASA, has used a version of this. It's used in government. Bill Clinton was trained by the guy that developed the profile. The guy Tavy Keller that developed the initial science behind it, Clinton really used it because it helped him understand people with it. And so the science behind it really has a lot of meat to it. Now, we're going to apply it in some different contexts, but I'd just encourage you, walk with this, make sure you do that so that you're prepared for it. Second thing we said is you will have the opportunity to develop a personal mission statement. Russell referred to that. We don't want to just learn about us to learn about us. We want to learn about us to be used, to make a difference, to find out why we're here, because we believe God put us on the planet with some intentionality to serve Him and serve other people. And I'm going to say that each session with this because it's one of my kind of personal drum beats. When we're doing this, where we're discovering ourselves, we're focused on ourselves, it's real easy to get narcissistic about this and go, this is just about me for my sake. That's not why we do it here. Now, I want you to discover you. I want you to come alive. I want you to have the freedom and the promises we're talking about. But we do this for others because the greatest fulfillment in life, the greatest honor is serving others and using how we were made to bring other people alive and bless this planet for God's glory. Those were the 2 promises. Remember the core concept of the design process, the core concept of servants by design. Every person has been uniquely crafted and gifted by God to perform meaningful acts of service to Him and others. Every person has been uniquely crafted. And we said the practical benefits that you'll experience if you'll go through that, the 4 practical benefits, you'll have a deeper appreciation for how God made you. Key word there being appreciation. Instead of begrudging how you're made, you'll appreciate it. You'll have a greater clarity and confidence in evaluating new opportunities. You're going to have a greater opportunity and clarity and confidence to be able to look at something, whether it's a promotion, whether it's a new job, whether it's a new hobby, whether it's something in life that you look at and you go, does that really fit me? And it gives you the courage to be able to say something we don't like to say a lot, to say the word no. Just be able to say no to people. Because you realize, as great as that opportunity is, it's not me. And they may have a design for me, but it's not my design. And they may have an agenda and a path for me, but it's not my agenda and path. Give you the confidence to be able to say yes and no. Third thing, the discovery of invaluable insights for relating better with all kinds of people. I think that'll be the first thing that springs out of just as you go through the profile and you start understanding you and the people around you, Man, the ability to see the world as they see it, to understand you and them, you'll relate at a new level. I'd encourage you, I'll say this over the next few weeks as well, as you understand it, you may want to get if you're married, to get your wife to take it as well. Because it's invaluable as y'all start comparing those notes together and you understand the terminology, you'll relate to each other in a new way. You'll understand where you're coming from. Fourth thing is the experience of a new freedom to employ who you are in more meaningful ways. New freedom to employ who you are. Because if you don't understand you, I can promise you this, somebody out there will design a path for you or will underestimate you or will relegate you to what they think you match up with. I love some of the famous misses in history where people made an assessment about another person and missed it. Fred Astaire, remember the famous classic actor Fred Astaire, in his first screen test in 1933, the casting director at MGM wrote these words. He said, "Can't act, slightly bald, can dance a little." And Fred Astaire went on to have one of the most rewarding, fulfilling careers. He kept that memo framed over his fireplace in his Beverly Hills home. Just his little reminder of what somebody thought of him, but he knew enough to keep persevering in it. Some of the other misses, Coach Vince Lombardi. When he was a young coach, this was what an older coach said about him. He possesses a minimal knowledge of football and lacks motivation. you laugh at that. What is it every NFL team is killing themselves to get? The Vince Lombardi Trophy. I mean, they give the Super Bowl champ the trophy named after the guy. Somebody did a bad assessment there. Louisa May Alcott, the author of Little Women, other classic works, her family begged her, give up writing. There's no future in it. Be a seamstress or a maid. Much more promising career. Beethoven always handled the violin awkwardly. He made his teacher furious because he didn't want to play the compositions that were there. He wanted to play these ones he wrote. And this is what the teacher wrote. He is hopeless as a composer. Caruso, the opera singer, his teacher wrote, Caruso has no voice at all and cannot sing. Walt Disney was fired from the newspaper for lacking ideas. Now, I say all these, I mean, you can go through the list of how many different examples where somebody in life made a quick assessment. They go, this guy doesn't have it. He can't do it. And somebody may have done that to you in your life. In fact, some of you still hear that voice of somebody that made that assessment, somebody that told you, they kind of relegated you to where you are in life. And it's everything, every day you just kind of hear them underestimating you. And at some point, that voice starts blurring with your own voice. And you tell it to yourself. I hope, if nothing else out of this, you just a fresh awakening. You'd give you a fresh chance, a new opportunity to look at it and say, maybe there's something different here. Maybe I don't have to be relegated to my voice or the voices of the past. Let me give you a couple things we're going to do this morning. One, that you can see the practical evidence of the core concept. You're going to see it practically, and then we're going to look at some biblical evidence. Practical evidence of how unique we are, how different we are. First thing, and this one just jumps out real quickly at us, we are all different in our physical makeup. Our physical makeup is distinct. I mean, look around the room. We look different. It's amazing to me, though, you start with the same features. I mean, it's not like any of us had 4 arms. It's not like our ears are in different locations on our body. I mean, all the same features are in the same places. And yet we are so different. In fact, science in the last few years, as they've studied the human genome, they've realized we are more different than we thought. They used to say that every human being is 99.9% identical to every other person. It's only in that 0.1%. The more we keep mapping out the human genome, they've reduced it. They go, it's actually closer to 99%. There's probably a full percent different with that. You remember they used to say we're 99% the same as chimpanzees. That number's lowering. It's down there going, there's probably a little more difference than chimpanzees than we realized with that. You're made up of about 30,000 genes in a human genome. 3 billion characters. 3 billion characters that make up your code. The code of you. And you think about all those different things, all those variants. They used to think you were just a copy of both sets of parents. They're realizing now there's some duplicate copies of some sequences that really may explain a lot of diseases, may explain a lot as far as some people having strengths and abilities. It may be in those doubling in those copies that they haven't figured out how that shows up yet. I say all that to say you are so unique. 3 billion characters that make up you. I'm always amazed when I look at my kids, especially my boys. We had 4 sons in 5 years. I mean, that's 4 little boys in one little stretch right there. And I see my neighbor over there, Anthony, he gets to see my little boys quite a bit as they're out and about in the neighborhood with that. I mean, they're blonde hair, blue eyed, same parents. And yet I look at each of those kids, they are so different. They're so distinct. Now, we know that there's a duh factor to that, but we don't value that. We don't value there's a reason that somewhere along the line, the Creator had a reason for all 3 billion characters of your code and the parts that were there. Second thing is our perceptions are different. Our perceptions are different. We see the world through different lenses. I see it well, last night the replay of the Arizona-Green Bay playoff game was on. And watching that replay again, instant classic as ESPN calls it. If you saw the game this weekend, it went into overtime, 45-45 in overtime. In overtime, Aaron Rodgers gets the ball. Green Bay's thrilled. They get the ball. All they got to do is move down the field. They're going to score a touchdown. He gets the ball. And if you saw it, you remember the last play? He goes back and he gets sacked. And as he gets sacked, he's stripped of the ball. And Arizona gets the ball and they run it into the end zone. But the guy that sacks him also has his hand on his face mask. And he's pushing the face mask. Now, it's interesting to look at the perceptions of the two teams. Because Arizona fans are going crazy. They go, greatest defensive play. Awesome. Loved it. Perfect. Green Bay fans are going nuts. Did you see the face mask? It's totally egregious. Play shouldn't count. And you can get thousands of them in the same room. They'll argue till they're blue in the face over it. What's going on there? Didn't they see the same play? Yeah, but one of them have those Cardinals glasses on, and one of them have those Green Bay glasses on. And you've been there. I mean, how many plays have you said, ref, can't you see it? Isn't it amazing how somehow your home team, you just feel that allegiance in a way that you go, it shapes the way we actually think and see. That's true of all of life. You've got glasses on that shape your perception. When we lived in Bangkok, I saw this. Just living in another culture. If you ever live overseas, you realize they see the world differently than we see the world. If you are married, you realize there's half the population on this planet that sees the world fundamentally differently than we do. Now, what you're going to find in Servants by Design, as you start realizing how you're wired, it helps you to understand those perceptions. Two of the categories. Some people are an achiever base. Some people are a harmonizer base. If you're achiever base, you have a thinks first lens on all the time. You're always thinking. I mean, let's be logical. That's how you see the world. If you're a harmonizer, they have a feelings first base. They have a feelings first base. And so take those two and put them in the same household, there's a crisis all of a sudden. Something went wrong. Now, what's the achiever doing? No, we need to think about it. Let's be logical about this. What's the harmonizer doing? Oh man, this is killing me. Oh, this hurts so bad. Do you feel this? And they're mad at this person over here of, why are you being so stinking logical in a time like this? And the achiever's over there going, why are you letting emotions cloud a time like this? If there was ever a time we need to think, it's now. You see, they have two different perceptions. And learning your lenses, learning what kind of glasses you have on and what the glasses of the people around you have on, it'll be amazing how some of the people you've had in your life for the longest time and you've told yourself, why can't they just think straight? Why can't they just see the world the way I see it? It's because they can't see the world the way you see it. But if you could understand them, it'll help you in that perception. Third thing, our styles of communicating are not the same. Our styles of communicating are not the same. We don't use the same words. We don't mean the same things when we are using the same words. And again, it's easiest to see this with men and women. A guy can come home and she'll say, "How was your day at work today?" And he can say the word fine. Maybe you've done that. You go, "How was work today?" "It was fine." And when you say fine, it's an all-encompassing fine. I mean, it fits for the whole day. It's the absolute summary. Nothing more really needs to be said. I told you it was fine. Now, flip it around. And you come home and you look at her and you, "Hey, how you doing?" And she says the word fine. Does it mean the same thing? In fact, if you want to get yourself in the doghouse quick, go ahead and assume everything's fine. And go, "Hey, great to hear it," and keep moving. Well, we communicate totally different. Now, it's easy, we laugh real quick, it's easy to see between men and women. We don't even realize, though, as men, we communicate different. And sometimes I think that's our greatest misses. Sometimes I see some of the greatest strife in relationship with guys. They're wired different ways. They see the world different ways. They're using the same terms, but they assume, well, we're men, so we understand each other. And sometimes we don't. So it's the greatest conflict in the world, some of the greatest conflict at work, some of your greatest business conflict. You can't figure out why you can't get somebody on your team at work. You can't figure out why this guy you can't understand him. And part of it, you don't see the world his ways. Fourth thing, our approaches to learning vary greatly. Our approaches to learning vary greatly. We all learn differently, more than we realize. And unfortunately, our education system doesn't realize this. Our education system does not respect unique design. And it's one of the reasons why we spend so much time in it to help you come alive in it, because we really have not been trained in that. Just see in this room some of the differences in learning styles. If I were to stand up here and I had a brand new smartphone, maybe I have the new Droid or some new device, it's a new computer, and I were to give it to you today and say, "Here, it's yours." How would you learn how to use it? What would be your learning style? Let me give you the 4 options. You can see the 4 options on the screen. First one, you would read the manual. A little manual came with it, and so you'd read the manual and you go, "Yeah, I'm going to understand how to use this device. I want to know it. It's powerful. I need to know all things. I'm going to read it." Second one, you might take a class. Take a class. You might go online and go, "Is there a training class, something?" They're behind it. I'm going to learn how to use it, but a classroom setting will help me better. Third, you'd ask someone to show you. You'd go back over to the AT&T store, the Verizon store. You go, "Here, show me how to use this device." You'd call a buddy at work and go, "Hey, don't you have one of these phones? Come here, show me how to do this." And so you're going to ask them personally. Fourth, you just trial and error. You just start with it. I'll figure it out as I go along. Load it up over time. About 6 months in, you go, "Whoa, I didn't know it could do that." All right, how many guys here, you would read the manual? How many manual readers? Yeah, we got a few that, all right. How many take a class? No, there's some classroom settings, the way they learn. How many would ask someone to show you? Ask somebody to show you. All right, how many trial and error guys? Yeah, I'm there. If somebody could show me how to use my phone later, I really would love it. I've been, a couple of years in and I still can't figure the thing out. Yeah, what's going on there? We all have different learning styles. And when it comes to real life, you gravitate toward it. When it comes to an educational system, you really didn't have much choice. Not a lot of trial and error in the educational system. Really, there's only a few ways that you can learn within that. And because of that, we're missing out. I love the parable that's told of the animals. Listen to this story. Once upon a time, the animals decided they must do something heroic to meet the problems of the changing world, so they organized a school. They adopted a curriculum consisted of running, climbing, swimming, and flying. To make the school easier to administer, they decided that all the animals would take the same subjects. The duck was excellent in flying, better in fact than his instructor, and he made passing grades in swimming. But the duck was very slow in running. So he had to stay after school and drop flying to practice running. By the end of the semester, he had lost so many feathers in his remedial climbing class that he almost failed flying. And his webbed feet were so worn from running that he was only average in swimming. But average was acceptable to the school, so nobody worried about it except the duck. The rabbit started at the top of his class in running, but he about had a nervous breakdown because he was having to do makeup work in swimming. The squirrel was excellent in climbing, but became frustrated in flying class, where her teacher made her start from the ground up instead of the treetop down, as she was used to doing. She developed leg cramps from overexertion of trying to develop sufficient takeoff speed, and ultimately got a C in climbing and in running. The eagle was a constant disciplinary problem. He beat everyone to the top of the tree in climbing class, but his test score was disallowed because he didn't follow the accepted procedures. And then finally, at the end of the school year, the Cocker Spaniel became class valedictorian, even though he only had 6 working brain cells and he completely bombed in flying. He tried hard at everything, and the teachers really liked his attitude. Now, what's going on there? The whole school fails to follow this key principle. And here's the principle. Write it down, guys. Function follows form. Function follows form. The function of something, a function of an animal, function of a person, it follows the form. And so in this school, there was no allowance for unique design. They didn't recognize that each animal excelled in a different function, and that was based on the form of the animal. But here's the reality. Animals don't do this. Animals live according to their form. The only people who don't live according to the way they were designed are humans. We're the ones that fail to get this. We're the ones that fail to develop even a system sometimes, and sometimes it's just based on, let's just put everybody in a classroom, put everybody through the same hoops, we'll all learn the same way. And some of you convinced yourself you were not smart because that system didn't match you. You still hold that label in your own mind to this day. I'll meet guys, they've been phenomenally successful in business. I mean, brilliant guys. But somewhere in them, they kind of feel like, yeah, I'm not really that smart. They tell themselves, oh, I just got lucky, right place, right time. And I want to tell them, no, you're actually brilliant. You just went through a system that really didn't match the way you learn, didn't match your strengths. See, we learn different ways. And discovering those strengths, and especially discovering my form, allows me to live in my function. It allows me to live in my function. Folks, this is so clear. It's just obvious from the practical evidence, but it's also obvious from the biblical evidence. This isn't just something we look at and we notice. It's in the Bible. And let me show you the biblical evidence of our core concept. Here's the biblical evidence. Look at it. Foundational principle number 1. All that we are and have that is worthwhile is a grace gift from God. All that you have that is worthwhile, all that you can do, your form, it's a grace gift from God. And what do I mean when I say grace gift? The definition is a gift of unique talents and abilities that we didn't earn or deserve, but God endowed us with them anyway. It's those talents and abilities, you didn't earn them, you didn't deserve them. It's not like you're so special, that's why you got them. God just gave them. They're grace gifts given to everybody. Why do I say that? Look at James 1:17. Jesus' half-brother wrote these words. He said, every good thing bestowed and every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shifting shadows. Every good gift, every good thing about you, it's a gift from above. And I love the way that Paul puts it in 1 Corinthians, because he calls us back into check in case we think we're too big, for our own britches. He says, for who regards you as superior? And what do you have that you didn't receive? He's writing to this group and he says, why do you think you're better than another person? I mean, whatever you have that you're good at, you received it. The opportunities you have, the gifts you have, they're grace gifts given to you. You know, one of my favorite things, I love Hall of Fame speeches. I love watching the different guys in different sports get inducted into the Hall of Fame. Because after the waiting period, the guy has retired. And then there's that waiting period where they wait to get in. And it's always interesting to me because some of those guys around retirement more, there's still that arrogance that hangs over them. But something happens kind of in those years, and they start looking at the greats that they're being inducted with. And I love those speeches because you'll see in them some of the greatest humility. Where a guy, and invariably they start thanking, the greatest speeches, they start thanking the people that got them to where they are. And it's just a moving moment. Now, with that, it is very jarring when you get a few speeches every so often where the guy doesn't thank anybody. And it's all about him. And it just stands out there and you just go, do you really believe that? You still holding on to that? And I'd say, I doubt any of us will be inducted into the Hall of Fame, maybe a Hall of Fame of some sort. But wherever we are in life, there's that great place to just stop and go, it was a grace gift. I'm not better than anybody else. I have the ability to do that. Great. Maybe I developed it. Maybe I practiced it. Anything. It's still a grace gift. Just to have the opportunity. And so the more you discover how you are unique, it should give you an appreciation for yourself, but it also should increase your appreciation for the people around you. And realize they have their gifts too. Second biblical foundational principle. Some grace gifts are crafted by God at conception, while others are given at conversion. Some are given by God, they're crafted by God at conception. Others are given at conversion. Next week, we'll talk a little bit, what do I mean about at conversion, what that means, and how God works in it. This week, we just finished out talking about conception. Those grace gifts that were crafted at conception. And King David wrote the words in Psalm 139. You can see them there in your workbook. You can look at the slide on the screen and get the guys to put that up there, the Psalm 139 slide. You can go back one. Right there. And I love these verses. Notice we've left it blank. And here's what I want you to put your name in it. For you created Russell's inmost being. You created Dave's inmost being. You knit John together in his mother's womb. He praises you because he is fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. He knows them full well. His frame, Dave's frame, John's frame, Russell's frame, whatever your name is, put that in there. His frame was not hidden from you when he was made in the secret together in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw his unformed body. The reason I want you to put your name in there, do you believe that about you? That God actually crafted you. You weren't a mistake. You weren't just this accident of genes that came together. You were actually crafted together. And he formed you and he saw you from secret on. And believing that and appreciating that and realizing he did that with a purpose for your life. It wasn't just that you're crafted and, oh, aren't I special? You're crafted because God had some special things for you to do. And you're the only one walking around on the planet with that 3 billion sequence code. You're the only one with that code. And he's got some special things for you to do in that. So remember our diagram that Russell taught us last semester? You can see it. You have birth. That's where that design comes in so that you can achieve those pursuits, so that you can leave the legacy that you long for. See, I think your legacy that you long for matches your form. I think your form results in the functions of what you do in your pursuits that ultimately matches the legacy that somewhere in your soul you long to leave. And you have those strengths. Now, some of those strengths, you don't need a test to realize it. In fact, if we were to break up right now and I'd have you talk for a little while with each other, some of you pretty quickly could come back and just tell me, oh, I can tell you some of the strengths of that guy. Man, that guy can communicate well. That guy's persuasive. That guy can teach. Some of you are natural-born coaches. I mean, whether it's out on a sports field or it's with a child or it's with somebody, you're always trying to coach them. You don't just teach them, You want to help them so they can do it and they can get better. It flows out of you. Some of you, just analysis comes to you. I mean, you can see figures and you can make it work just like that. You love doing the checkbook. You love making all the numbers line up. I do not understand you. But you love it. It comes to you. In fact, you look at other people and you go, you can't do that? So some of you you know how to weigh risk just like that. You can look at an investment opportunity, you realize that's a good investment. It comes to you. It's almost like you don't even have to think about it. All these different things. Some can communicate. You just speak, you don't think twice about it. You have those strengths. Some of those things you know already, and you can assess that. If you can combine that with how this profile does it, it gives you that platform to be able to step into those strengths more. But with all I'm saying, with the natural design, with the unique design, with the biblical evidence with it, I want to finish with some of the objections I hear from different guys about this, though. I just want to finish with a few objections. Because I know you're sitting out there and you go, yeah, but the hardest thing is that, but. Here's some of the objections. One, I know I'm unique, but I have so many flaws. Okay, I can do the numbers, but I can't do X, X, and X. If you really looked at me, man, my life, my character, who I am, it's pockmarked. And you've convinced yourself, well, those things will always hold me back. Not realizing that God could even use those things in the design. You know, it's interesting, the golf ball. If you take a golf ball and hold it up, what is all over a golf ball? Little pock marks, little indentions. I mean, if you looked at the thing, it's not the smoothest of balls. In fact, if it was smooth, if it didn't have those pock marks, and you hit a golf ball about as far as you could hit, it would be 130 yards. Now, some of you are saying, Tim, that's about as far as I hit it now. I'm talking about the Tiger Woods of the world, the people that just have the long drives. Without the pock marks, it lowers that air resistance. Those indentions are there by design. They didn't just happen. And I'd say the same thing. When we looked at that Psalm 139, he said, you crafted me. You knew me. You knew me from my inmost being. You knew my life. You had intentionality with it. Some of the very things that you look at yourself and you wince about and you go, oh, if I only didn't have that. Maybe the key to what God's going to do through your design. So quit living life always focused on those things. And just see what God's going to do. Quit living life comparing. I told you this last week, I'll say it again. Comparison kills. It kills. I mean, Paul said it, nobody's more superior than anybody else. If you've had more opportunities, it's just because somebody gave them to you. If you got a skill set that's very highly compensated, great. I am so happy for you. But don't think you're better than anybody else, and don't think you're worse either. Don't walk around going, somebody else is more superior to me. Because God doesn't think that way. And ultimately, you're saying to him, when you look at yourself and you go, I'm one big mistake, you know who your beef is with? It's not really with you. It's with him. And ultimately, you're saying, you know, God, you made a mistake. And God's looking at you today and he says, oh, I don't make mistakes. So why don't you discover why I made you and what you could do? Second objection I hear is some of you think I'm too young to make a difference. I'm too young to make a difference. I mean, you know, Tim, some of you are high school, college. You know, does it really matter now? I mean, I'm just going to go plot the course. And part of me wants to grab you and go, you should find it out now more than anybody else. You could avoid so many of the mistakes we've made in this room over this issue if you would chase it hard right now. It would shape your education, and I'd encourage you. Maybe you've got a student in your house, somebody that, before they go off to college, the best investment you can make is helping them understand design. Do the Ames testing down in Dallas. Do this testing with them. Continue to pursue that. You're about to pay $1,000 to go get them educated in a system that is not much different than the animal school. So as a parent, as a student, as somebody young, you would do well to go, what is my form? What are those strengths so that I can go get out of this system the best opportunity to set me up to succeed in the way that I was designed? The other thing I would say is you don't know what God's asking you to do right now at your age. Paul told Timothy, he says, don't let anybody look down on your youth. Don't let him dismiss you because you're young. Some of the greatest movements of the world have been done by young people. In fact, some would say most all the great movements of the world were really pushed forward by youth. I love the words Jeremiah said to God. Now the word of the Lord, see it on the screen, Jeremiah 1, the word of the Lord came to me, and he's saying, and look what God says to Jeremiah, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. He's talking about his unique design. Before you were born, I consecrated you. I have appointed you a prophet to the nation. Then I said, alas, Lord God, behold, I don't know how to speak because I'm a youth. Who am I to do this? And the Lord said, do not say I'm a youth, because everywhere I send you, you shall go, and all that I command you, you shall speak. You know what God's saying? I got a job for you. Don't tell me you're too young. Don't tell me you can't do this. I designed you in the womb. I'm telling you to do it now. I'm going to go with you. Let's get about it. I don't care what your age is. And so if you're sitting out here and you go, I'm too young to make a difference, I would say you've got a better opportunity to make a difference than anybody else in the room. Stop underestimating yourself because of youth. Third objection I hear with it is some of you go, that's just too late though. I learned this too late. And Tim, if you knew the mistakes I've made in my life, I've done some things that really, as great as my design might be, I am marked forever by that divorce, that bankruptcy, that failure. And here's what I'd encourage you. The same God that formed you is a God that talks about reforming. You know, Russell talked about redemption, renewal. There's a new day every day. And here's what I'd encourage you to do. Instead of always trying to hide that failure, let it just become part of who you are. Not in a way that you're held back by it, but in a way that you use as a platform of your character to serve others. Because there's another guy in this room struggling with what took you down. There's another guy in this room who's hiding his head in shame, and he needs you to come alongside and go, hey, let me tell you about when I failed. Let me tell you what life can be, even post-failure. Yeah, I love the story over 100 years ago in a Scottish village. There's a group of fishermen that were there in this hunting lodge. And the waitress came by with a teapot. One of the guys was talking about the fish he caught, and he knocked his arm over, and the teapot went against the wall and left this big brown stain on this whitewashed wall. And the owner kind of looked at it and went, oh, man, I'm going to have to paint the whole wall. And this guy in the back of the room stood up, and he goes, well, can I have a minute with it? And he went over to his bag, and he pulled out some paints and brushes. And he just started working with that brown splotch on the wall and drawing some lines here and there. And then when he was finished, they looked at it as this magnificent picture of a stag with a rack of antlers. And he signed it at the bottom of it. And he signed his name, E.H. Landseer. And the owner went over and looked at it, and he goes, do you realize who did this? This is Sir Edwin Landseer, the most famous wildlife artist of his time. See, he took what looked like this mark and this marring, and with his crafting, suddenly that spot, instead of just whitewashing it, you go, no, it's part of the fabric of it. But in the hands of a master, even the stain can be redeemed. I just want to encourage you. Yeah, maybe you made some horrible mistakes. You did some things, if you could rewind the tape, you'd never do them again. And everything in you just wants to hide that. There's part of it, I just bring it out light. Not that it is the defining moment of your life, but it's that thing that you can go, if God can redeem this, if God can use this, maybe my mistake can benefit somebody else. See, guys, in all of this, it's about discovering who you are to serve someone else. It's about discovering your strength while you're on the planet to make a difference. You know, a final objection I hear sometimes is, well, Tim, I discovered it, but what I do is not that big a deal. It's not that huge. Is it really making that much of a difference? I love that movie. Every year I watch It's a Wonderful Life. I'm a big old sucker. I tear up every year too. Because George Bailey lives in the little town and he gave his life away serving other people. Realizes he's the richest guy in town. And there's a part of life, I wish life on this planet compensated fairly. It doesn't always. It just doesn't always. But I believe, remember that the design we had? Your design leads to your pursuit, and part of that legacy is somebody's keeping the real score. And somebody knows. And finding that place where you can serve. Now, I'll close out with a story that David Cerquera tells. He's a pediatrician. And his wife was teaching what we're talking about just to a little Sunday school class at church. A little group. And this is what she told those kids. She said that you always need to be useful. God can use anybody that serves. If you just serve wherever God's placed you, you discover what He has for you, that is worthy of honor. And one little girl, Sarah, raised her hand and she said, well, what can I do? She said, I don't know how to do anything useful. And David's wife looked around the room and she saw this little vase. And she said, Sarah, here's what you could do. You could put a flower in that vase. She said, oh, that's not useful. She said, oh, yeah, it is. That could help somebody. And so little Sarah, the next week, showed up with a dandelion. And she put it in the vase. And then she did it the next week. Unprompted. Her parents didn't do anything. She just, every week, she would get that dandelion and she'd bring it into the classroom. And David's wife would come in and it was always there. Finally, David's wife said something to the pastor, and so the pastor used it as an illustration. He preached on it. He put the vase right up on his pulpit, and there was a dandelion in it, and he was trying to convince the congregation. He says, you know, no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing, that service is worthy of honor. And David said as he sat there, he goes, man, this was the start of one of the best weeks. Because I love that little Sarah was being honored the way she should. But later that day, her parents called her. They said, you know, Sarah's a little lethargic. She's not quite herself. Would you come see her? He said, why don't you bring her in the office? We'll run some tests. And he ran a battery of tests on her. And it was midweek. He's sitting at his office and he's looking at the report. And he says, the worst report I've ever seen. She had leukemia. And the combination of her leukemia and her genetics meant there was nothing we could do. And he drove over to her parents' house and he had the hardest conversation he's ever had in his life. As he said, there's no course of action. Love your little girl well. And over the next several months, Sarah started staying home. Sarah started getting bundled up. Finally, one night they called him. They said, you got to come see her. And as he came in and saw that little girl, he told him, he says, you don't have much time left. Spend as much time as you can with her. That was on a Friday afternoon. And Sunday morning, Dr. Cerquera is sitting in church, and he just said, you know, it was just nothing registered. The songs, the sermon, just sat there in sadness. And at the end of the sermon, the pastor's eyes widened. And he looked in the back of the room, and everybody turned. And there was Sarah. And she walked to the front of the church. And that little vase that was still on the pulpit, she had a little dandelion in her hand. And she put the dandelion in the vase and a little piece of paper right next to it. And then the whole church gathered around her and her parents. They cried with them. And Sarah died 4 days later. You know, at the funeral, the pastor grabbed David. He said, come here, I want to show you something. In fact, I want you to have it. I think it'd help you in your line of work. And he pulled out of his pocket a little slip of paper, the piece of paper Sarah had brought up. And there in pink crayon were written these words, Dear God, this vase has been the biggest honor of my life. Sarah. David writes, Sarah's note and her vase have helped me to understand. I now realize in a new way that life is an opportunity to serve God by serving people. And as Sarah put it, that's the biggest honor of all. Guys, I don't know why God has you on this planet, but there's a reason. And there are people He wants you to serve. And I don't want you to miss, no matter what it is, big or small, the biggest honor He has for you in this life. Thanks, Russell.
Good job, Tim. Well, a couple of just quick points for you guys to go to small group. When I was thinking that just memories started flooding back. My son was 15 when I went through this the first time, and then I said, man, I think we need to go through this. And so he went through the unique design. We kind of did it together, and kind of the underlying takeaway from that was we really found that he really was a play first, work second guy. That was just kind of part of his core wiring, where I was kind of a work first, play second. And we just saw that that was the root of a lot of the conflict that we had. And it gave us it really just gave us almost a goal to pull forward of how were we going to do better, because he saw the flaws in the way I was living and where it was just robbing from me a lot of life and a lot of experiences with my family and things. And he saw where his way of living was robbing from him a lot of things, that he was missing out on some accomplishments and some pursuits that he would like to do from that. And so we just kind of made a bond that we would help each other kind of move to the middle just a little bit and be a little better version of ourselves. And so that was a great opportunity to do that. And with my wife, we found things differently. I love exactly what you said back in there, kind of the whole how we see things through feelings or through fix it. And I got this phrase from my wife that I just have to say every time that there's a problem, that she has a problem that she makes me aware of. And I just ask myself, and then I ask her, now, honey, do you want me to fix this or do you want me to feel this? Now, you can imagine what the answer to the question is about 99% of the time. Occasionally it's, no, I want you to fix it. The toilet's leaking. But for the most part, it's, no, I just want you to feel it. I got a problem. There's nothing you can do about it. I just don't want you to do anything but just feel it with me. So that's been an important thing for just the relationships. And then the last thing I'd say is, I don't know if you guys watched the opening session of American Idol last night. My wife loves to watch that, so I've kind of gotten into it with her. But this is the part that I like the best, where there's just these open calls and people are showing. But the folks that get up there, and some of them are just making fools of themselves, I know they are, but the guys that really, like I talked about a few weeks ago, guys that really believe that they have what it takes, and they don't. And the only voices they've allowed to come around them are people that had the love goggles on for them enough that they would go, oh, you sound great, honey, oh, you're this. And then they're just devastated when somebody that, just looks at them and sees that. And here's what I have to say about my life. I just have to, every time I see that, that's why I think I like it, I have to look in the mirror and ask myself, where am I going out and making a fool out of myself? Because I don't have the courage to have the self-awareness that I need to not be a fool, to not try to think that I'm something that I'm not, and to go in there. And so, anyway, that's just kind of part of that. You guys, I'm looking forward to next week. We're going to have our tests done. Get them done. It may be painful for some of y'all. It may be fun for some of y'all. I don't care. Get them done. Be here next week with them. We'll see you. Go to small groups.